Hello, welcome to my channel. I am so happy to have you here as always. Today I'm going to show you how to crochet what I'm currently wearing, which is this adorable slouchy pullover or sweater. You can customize it to your measurement so easily, and it works up really quickly because it's entirely made up of treble crochets. Before we start this tutorial, I reached 2,000 subscribers the other day, which is awesome. Thank you so much. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video. That's what keeps me going so I can continue making more tutorials for all of you. So if you like this piece at all, or if you like me at all, subscribe, like the video, and perhaps comment something down below if you so desire to. Alright, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it as always, and now here is the tutorial. For this pattern, I'll be using this Weight 4 acrylic yarn. I'm using a bit of a multicolor blend. This one is in the color Dappled Wheat, which I'm not sure how I feel about that name. I think it's not very fitting, but regardless, this is a gorgeous yarn, and I will also be using a 5mm crochet hook. So this sweater is made up of two separate panels, which means we're going to be making both the front and the back of the sweater separately. So right now I'm just working on the first of those two panels, and you're going to go ahead and start by making a base chain. So I'm going to be chaining 70 for my project. Because this top is designed to have a loose fit, I don't have to be too concerned about making a chain that will fit me perfectly. So I am chaining what looks to be about the front of a sweater, and I'm making sure it's a little bit on the bigger side. So when I hold it up, it goes from about one shoulder to the other. And then when I hold it closer towards my torso, there's a little bit of extra room on both sides of my torso. So now that I've completed my chain of 70, I'm going to go ahead and chain an additional 3. 1, 2, and 3. And now the entirety of this sweater will be made up of treble crochets, and I'm going to briefly explain to you here how to do a treble crochet, but if I'm going too quickly, there are slower, more in-depth treble crochet tutorials you can find on YouTube, but basically what you're going to do is yarn over twice. So I have 2 wraps of yarn around my hook, and now I'm going to go back these 3 chains we just did, so 1, 2, 3, and into that third chain, I'm going to insert my hook. I am then going to go ahead and pick up some yarn and pull that through. So now you should have 4 loops of yarn here on your hook. I'm then going to pick up another loop of yarn. I'm going to pull that through the first 2 loops on my hook. So now you should have 3 loops of yarn left on your hook. I'm going to pick up some more yarn and pull that through the next 2 loops. So now you should have 2 loops left on your hook. So now I can pick up that last bit of yarn and pull it through the last 2 loops. So it's basically like a double crochet, just a little bit taller. So just repeat that exact same method, placing a treble crochet into every single chain stitch all the way down to the end of your chain to complete that first row. So now at the end of the row and at the end of any other rows we do in this project, you're always going to chain 3. That way we're at the same height as the treble crochet. So then when you turn your work to start your next row, this chain 3 sort of acts as a treble crochet. And now we're ready to go ahead and place another treble crochet right into that first stitch of the row, like so. And then you're going to go ahead and repeat this exact same process of just multiple rows here of treble crochet, and I'm going to be doing between 15 and 20 rows of the treble crochet, and just go ahead and do as many rows as you want until the panel is as long as you would like your sweater to be. So I went ahead and did 16 rows here of the treble crochet, which when I hold this panel up with the top of the panel right at my collarbone, the panel itself falls down to about a cropped shirt length, which is perfect because once the sweater is actually completed, it's going to have a bit more of a drape to it, and it'll kind of drape down lower to more of a full shirt length. So these 16 rows are perfect for me and my project, but you can add or take away rows as needed. I am realizing now that I did not do a great job of explaining to you how to crochet the collar portion, so I'm going to do that here instead. And the sweater is already completed, so in order to demonstrate this for you, I had to just make a little swatch quickly. So let's just pretend like this is an entire panel and not just 2 rows of treble crochet. So basically, once you have completed your entire panel, then you're going to go ahead and make the collar portion. So on a normal sweater or a normal shirt, the collar is going to land right in the middle of your piece, and then you're going to have the shoulder portions on either side. But this time, because we want the sweater to be quite loose and we kind of want one of the shoulders to be like falling off, we're going to make the neck hole a little bit off center. So if this is sort of the center of our piece, I'm actually going to move visualize it to be moving off to the right or the left. You can kind of decide. On this shoulder, I'm going to be doing 17 stitches, and on this shoulder, I'm going to be doing 29 stitches. So we're going to start on the smaller side first, and for your own project, you want this to be anywhere between like 10 and 20 stitches. You want this to be quite small, almost the size of like a tank top strap, like a wide tank top strap. I still have not casted off of this panel, which is perfect. I'm going to go ahead and chain 3 like always. And then I'm going to turn my work, and now into these next 17 stitches I'm going to be placing a treble crochet. So instead of completing one whole row of treble crochet, I'm only going to do my next 17 stitches of this row. Okay, and so once you have finished that, we're then going to go ahead and make sort of a slope down into this next row, and we're going to do that by decreasing. So I'm going to start by just yarning over once. I'm then going to insert my hook right into this next stitch and then pull 1 loop of yarn through. So I now have 3 loops of yarn here on my hook. I'm then going to go to the stitch right after that one, so this next stitch, insert my hook, pick up some yarn and pull that through. So we now have 4 loops of yarn here on my hook, which is the perfect number to then do a treble crochet. So I pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Therefore, we just connected these 2 stitches together into 1 stitch, making a decrease. So now I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. And then turn my work, and then we're going to do that one more time. So I'm going to yarn over into this very first stitch here after our chain. I'm going to insert my hook, pick up some yarn, so I have 3 loops here on my hook, insert my hook right into the next stitch, pick up some yarn, so now I have the 4 loops, and then go ahead and turn that into 1 treble crochet. Like so. I am then going to go ahead and place a treble crochet into every single stitch all the way back to the start of this row. That way we have 2 rows here to make up 1 collar section. So then once I reach the end of this row, I'm just going to go ahead and cast off on this side. Let me show you this quickly so you can better visualize what I'm trying to demonstrate. So as you can see, sort of the neck or the head hole here is off-centered. It's very clearly off-centered because of the different stitch counts. So when I try this on, this is the side we already did where it's less of the shoulder portion. So that's the side that falls down. And then this is the side that stays up. So this is the end goal. This side is much longer, this side is much shorter, and then we have that perfect drape off to the side like so. So then with this piece, which again, we're going to pretend like this is a full panel and not just 2 rows. So I'm holding it up like so. I'm making sure that this is falling sort of where I want it to. And if I were to do like 13 stitches, this would land here. And then see how that falls even lower. So instead, I'm pulling it back to where I want it to be, and then I can sort of pinch right where that collar would then be to hold it in place. And then looking at it now, I can go ahead and count back, and I already know from experience this is going to be 29 stitches. So that's the exact number I'm going to do for my sweater, and that's kind of how you're going to get the gist of it. If it doesn't fit properly, you can always redo it. This part's pretty easy to redo, so I wouldn't stress about it too much. Okay. If none of this made sense, comment down below that it didn't make sense, and I will do my best to explain it to you. So I am now working on the side opposite to where we have the shoulder portion from before. I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into that first stitch. I'm then going to pull that new yarn through, and then I'm going to go ahead and chain 3. And now I'm going to be placing a treble crochet into the next 29 stitches, starting with this first stitch here that we have our chain coming out of. So here's our first stitch, and now I'm going to go ahead and place a treble crochet into the next 28 stitches after that. And then like before, now that I've completed all of those stitches, I'm going to go ahead and do my little decrease here. So I'm going to yarn over once, insert my hook right into that next stitch, pick up some yarn, insert my hook into the stitch right after that one, pick up some yarn, and then treble crochet, therefore turning 2 stitches into 1 treble crochet. I'm then going to chain 3, turn my work, and repeat that same process by yarning over 1 into that first stitch, and then right into the second stitch, and then turn that into a treble crochet. I'm then going to go ahead and complete 1 more row of treble crochet all the way back to the start. to therefore finish the wider and longer shoulder portion. And then that's all you're going to need to do for the shoulders and the panel. You're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on another panel now, and you're going to do it exactly identical. So make sure you're chaining the same number as your base chain, that you're doing the exact same number of treble crochet rows as you did on your first panel. And then when you get to the shoulders, make sure you're doing both the short shoulder and the long shoulder. And I'm now going to cut to the finished panels. We'll go back to the tutorial as normal. And so here I have that second panel completed. And I also went ahead and did the very first of the two collar or shoulder portions. But before I cast off on this side, I'm going to go ahead and attach this panel to our first panel here. So I'm going to take our first panel and lay it right on top of the second one so that the two shoulder portions here are touching like so and lined up. And now we can go ahead and slip stitch that together. So I'm just going to insert my hook into the first stitch of this panel, and then I'm moving back to the next panel, which we have lined up like so, and I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch of that second panel. So I've got both stitches from both panels on my hook right now, and I'm then going to pick up some yarn and pull it through both loops, and then also pull it through this loop on my stitch, on my hook, like so. So then going into the next stitch, I'm going to insert my hook into the next stitch. I'm going to the second panel here. I'm going to pick up the second stitch of that second panel. So again, I have both stitches here on my hook of both panels, and they're all lined up perfectly. I'm then going to pick up one loop of yarn and pull it through both stitches and that extra loop there on my hook. So that's a slip stitch, and that's what I'm going to do all the way down. And if you don't want to slip stitch, or if you already accidentally cast it off on the shoulder portion, you can just go ahead and use a darning needle and some extra yarn and just sew these two pieces together. I just prefer to slip stitch because I think it goes faster and it also leaves you with less yarn ends to weave in. It's also important to note that as you're securing these pieces together, you want to keep your tension very loose so you don't accidentally bunch up the piece and have weird wrinkles at the top of the shirt. So I'm keeping my tension very, very loose as I do this. So now here at the last stitch, I'm slip stitching like so. And there you can see that both sides are attached securely. And now I'm going to go ahead and chain one so I can then cast off by cutting my yarn. So now we have the two shoulders here of the panels fully attached, but on the other side here, I don't have the shoulder or collar portion yet created on the second panel. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to kind of move this panel out of the way. And then on this side, I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into that first stitch. So just like before, I'm keeping my tension quite loose. I'm inserting my hook into the first stitch on both sides, both panels there. And then I'm just going to pull that yarn through all of the loops, therefore slip stitching. And then go right into the next stitch and make sure I have them lined up, then picking up the same stitch on both sides, and then pull that yarn through, keeping my tension quite loose. Okay, and now that I've reached the end of the row, I'm going to go ahead and just chain one and then cut my yarn. So once you have completed and attached both sides of the sweater, you then want to try it on and just make sure it's fitting the way you like. So when I was trying it on, I sort of pinched the panel together under my arm in different places to sort of see where I want the sleeve to start and what looks best. I then just took a bobby pin, or you could use a stitch marker, and I decided to mark the one spot that I liked the best. So that's exactly what I have here, is my completed top with one little bobby pin off to the side where I want to start my sleeve. And so we're going to go ahead and make that happen. So now first things first, starting from the stitch marker, I'm going to count how many rows down to the bottom this is. That way I know for next time on the other side, so it can be an even project. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rows from the bottom is where I marked my project. So I'm just going to write that down, that way I remember for the other side. Okay, so now going to the bottom corner here of these two panels, I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into that first stitch there, and then same thing over on the other side of that other panel. I'm going to insert my hook right into that bottom stitch there, like so. I am then going to bring some new yarn through and then chain one to lock it in place. And now we're just going to be slip stitching all the way up until we hit that stitch marker. Typically when you are slip stitching two pieces together, you only place one slip stitch in every single stitch, working your way up. But because treble crochets are such tall stitches, I'm going to place an additional 2 slip stitches in between each of the rows. So in these treble crochets themselves, I'm inserting my hook like right into the stitch on both sides. And right now I'm doing that on the bottom of the stitch there. And then I'm going to slip stitch again, keeping my tension quite loose. And then towards the top of that treble crochet, I'm going to insert my hook again. And I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. So now I've picked up sort of the top of the treble crochet, and then I'm going to slip stitch. And then like normal, now I'm going to attach the next row like so. So because the treble crochets are super tall, I'm just going to slip stitch multiple times for each treble crochet, and I'm going to slowly work my way up to that stitch marker, just connecting both sides of this project. So I have now successfully worked my way all the way up with slip stitches to that first row here that we have marked with the bobby pin or stitch marker. So now we can go ahead and get started on the sleeve itself. We have this little opening here where the sleeve can take place, and I'm going to go ahead and start by just chaining 3. So here's 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to be working in a round, so we're just going to keep working around and around and around this opening. And so I'm going to go ahead and place a treble crochet right into this very first stitch here. And now because we're working into the side of the rows instead of the top, there really is no clear stitches or places to insert your hook in order to do a stitch. So instead, I'm just going to be placing 2 treble crochets into every single one of these horizontal treble crochets from the row. So I'm going to go ahead and yarn over twice for my treble crochet, insert my hook right underneath that horizontal treble crochet, and go ahead and place 1 treble crochet. And I'm going to be placing 2 treble crochets for each one of these rows. So I'm going to put my hook right under the exact same stitch there and do 1 more treble crochet. I'm then going to go ahead and move on to the next row or the next stitch. So here we have another like horizontal treble crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook right under that one and go ahead and place another treble crochet. So now I'm at the very end of this row. I've now placed 2 treble crochets into every one of these rows or horizontal treble crochets, as you can see. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to where we started our row, and we're going to slip stitch just to attach these together. So into our 3rd chain here, right where that first treble crochet is, I'm going to insert my hook, pull that yarn through all the loops to slip stitch. So now we have that very first row completed, and now it's going to be a lot easier because now we have the normal stitches we can work into. So I'm just going to go ahead and chain 3, and then I'm going to turn my work this way, and I'm going to work my way around, placing a treble crochet into every single stitch until I reach the end of the row. And now at the end of the row here, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch into that 3rd chain or that first treble crochet like so, pulling that yarn through to slip stitch closed. I'm then going to go ahead and chain 3 and then turn my work so we can start another row, and that's all you're going to do to make this sleeve. You can already see it taking shape here. You're just going to go ahead and repeat that same process with as many rows as you want to. Try on the piece often to make sure it's still fitting the way you like, and just keep going until the sleeve is the length that you want. Okay, so I've now gotten the first sleeve here to the length that I want, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut my yarn, casting off. And now we're going to do the exact same thing over on the other side. I'm going to work my way up the exact same number of rows. So I actually ended up working up 8 rows instead of 9 on this side. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I'm laying these 2 panels together flat. I'm going to insert my hook right into that very bottom stitch here, like so. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, inserting my hook right through that very bottom stitch there. I'm then going to bring that yarn through, chain 1 to lock it in place. And so now I'm going to go ahead and count 8 rows, which is the same number of rows that I did on the other side. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 rows. On this 9th row here, I'm just going to stick my bobby pin or my stitch marker. And now I'm going to go ahead and just slip stitch all the way up here, attaching both panels together until I reach that stitch marker, just like we did on the other side. Okay, and now that I've reached that point, I'm going to go ahead and remove my little stitch marker. I'm going to then chain 3. And now we can start working in a round like we did before. Here we have our opening perfectly ready to go to become a sleeve. So now just like before, I'm going to go ahead and place 2 treble crochets into every single one of these rows here, just right underneath that previous treble crochet. And then just like before, you're going to keep working it around, slip stitching at the end of each row, and then starting your next row with a chain 3. And this sleeve may need more or perhaps less rows than your other sleeve because you do have that difference in the collar. Is not going to fit quite the same. So although you can estimate how many rows you're going to need based off of the rows you did on the other sleeve, this one will probably need at least 1 or 2 rows of difference because the shirt is going to fit you a little bit differently on both arms. So now I have completed both of the sleeves here, and as you can see, they do differ slightly in length. This one is a little bit longer than this one, and that's because whenever I try on the shirt, I just realized the way the slouch fits that I need this sleeve to be longer. So as I explained before, just make sure you're trying it on as you make both sleeves. That way you can have them be the correct length when you're actually wearing it. So both sleeves are done, and then I also went ahead and wove in all of the loose ends that come about from this project. So once you have done that, then we can go ahead and just turn this inside out, or in our case, right side out. That way the seams from where we did the slip stitches and attach both panels together will be on the inside of our project instead of the outside. So I'm just turning the entire thing right side out now. And this will give it a much cleaner look when you're wearing it. As you can see here, the seam looks a lot cleaner on this side than it does on that side. So now we have our completed top, and that is all there is to it. I really hope that you found this tutorial easy to follow and that you liked the way your sweater turned out. If you did make one of your own and you wanted to share it with me, I would love to see that, so feel free to either tag me in any post that you make or just send me a picture in my Instagram DMs, and I will be sure to respond and tell you how great your piece looks. If you have any questions, leave those in the comments. I will also try to respond to those. And thank you so much for all of your support, for subscribing, liking, commenting, all of that stuff. I will see you again soon with another tutorial. I hope you have a great rest of your day and your week or your year, however long it is till I see you again. I hope you have a good one. Goodbye.